It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech, you're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason. Can you believe it? It is hard to believe that we are already on a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration has already begun. And I say we enjoy it. What do you say? Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live across the entire Mid-America region, hailing out of Wichita, Kansas, right here in the middle of the nation on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610, also across the Mid-America Network. Great to have you along today. It is a Thursday, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK if you want to join into the program. 8 minutes past the hour. And I got to say, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's this time of year. With the springtime, now that, what was it, a day or two ago was the official first day of spring. Hard to believe. It came very, very quickly. It's still not the warmest as of yet. It's nice, but it's still not the warmest as of yet. I know the East Coast is still getting its bad weather and the snow, but the whole, I don't know, maybe it's the pollen, maybe it's the change of weather, maybe whatever it is, but the sinuses are ridiculous. I don't know if it's a cold. I don't know if it's I don't know what it is, but it may just be this time of year, the transition from the cold weather to the warm weather. It's driving me nuts. Now, that doesn't mean that we get to stop in any way, shape, or form, but it's bothersome and it's annoying, and I guess that's what God created whiskey for, right? That's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm sticking to. 316-721-8255. We got a heck of a show for you today, heck and a half, as at the bottom of the hour, we're going to replay our interview with Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District, talking about the debates happening up in Washington, D.C., the swatting bill that he proposed a week or so ago, along with the upcoming appropriations bills and the debate that's going to go along with that, what we may anticipate with the omnibus and the appropriations. Also, coming up today, it's a big show. As you know, yesterday the official word was that Secretary of State for the state of Kansas, along with GOP gubernatorial candidate Kris Kobach, ended up choosing Wink Hartman for his running mate and lieutenant governor for the ticket, and they are on their big statewide campaign. They will be joining the show over the phone at 7:30 this morning, so really excited for that one. Also in the 8 o'clock hour, yesterday, I don't know if you're aware or not, but it was Kick Butts Day when it came to the campaign for tobacco-free children, and Gustavo Torrez, he'll be joining us, the director of the youth advocacy for the campaign for tobacco-free kids. That interview will be at 8 o'clock today. So a big show. Other than that, it's open lines to you and a lot to get to. I want to get your thoughts on this big choice when it comes to Secretary of State Kris Kobach and his running mate with Wink Hartman. Do you think that's the proper choice for him on this campaign? Now, Kris Kobach has always been kind of in the lead a little bit when it comes to the polls. And now, this isn't an endorsement or anything. This is just the observation of what we've seen. Kris Kobach predominantly has been kind of leading the charge on this campaign for when it comes to the GOP primaries. Wink Hartman was in a close number 2. Jeff Collier has been in a close number 2. And then we've had kind of Jim Barnett, Ken Seltzer, Mark Hutton. Mark Hutton dropped out, but they've kind of been just hanging around and tied for third and kind of right close behind everybody, which isn't bad. And, I mean, that could definitely change before the end of this primary by this fall. But as of right now, Kris Kobach has been in the lead. And the fact that he has chosen Wink Hartman is an interesting pick for him. Wink Hartman being a non-politician, being one of his heavy contenders in the primary when he was running for governor, and he's a very smart individual. I think this could be a definite bonus and a benefit for Secretary of State Kris Kobach. The latest poll, according to Kris Kobach, after the announcement yesterday, did read off Kris Kobach has been in the lead at 31%, Governor Jeff Collier at 18%, Jim Barnett at 10%, Ken Seltzer at 4%, and undecided, according to this poll, at 36%. which is very fascinating. Now, the last poll that we did for the Voice of Reason that I did post, and everybody could go online and they could do their little survey and they could vote on who they supported. Kris Kobach was in the lead for that one, but by a small margin, and it was roughly about the same one. That undecided was close to 36%. And it was right around there, the same amount percentage-wise as support for Kobach. So I open up the lines to you for our listeners across the entire region, across our entire state, whether you're on the western part of the state, whether you're here in the Wichita area, regardless of where you may be. I'm very curious to get your thoughts on who you support at this time in the governor's race for the primary for the Republican side. Now, if you're a Democrat, then I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Democrat race as well and your perspective. But I already know the perspective of the Democrats when they look at the Republican race. I already know it. And they're not very happy. They think that Kris Kobach is even more intense and more extreme than Governor Sam Brownback. There has been a story trying to begin to make it look, the media always loves to be able to help choose their candidate for the Republican side. They did it with many national elections. They say this person's going to be the more moderate. They're going to be able to work across the aisle. They're going to be more bipartisan. They're going to be great. They're going to choose somebody, and then in the general election, they're going to turn around and demonize them. And we have a story that's already beginning to do that in this race. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But right now, the media and the Democrats and the progressives are panicky of the fact that Kris Kobach is so far in the lead because out of all the candidates, they despise Kris Kobach. Now they despise Jeff Collier as well because Jeff Collier is nothing more than another Brownbackite, and Brownback chose him to be the lieutenant governor, and now he's governor because of that. And they don't like him either. Jim Barnett and Ken Seltzer, yeah, they've come after them, but they haven't really focused a whole lot of attention on them because they haven't been in the limelight. They haven't been in the focus of the media. So your thoughts on the race so far? We have a little bit of time, but it's going to start heating up very, very quickly. And just some words of advice for Jeff Collier, for Jim Barnett, for Ken Seltzer. I mean, they're solid individuals. I listened to them during the first Republican debates, except for Jim Barnett, who was not part of it. But I've listened to all of them. They've all come on the show so far, except for Ken Seltzer. We've reached out a couple of times. He's not been able to make it on the show yet. We'll still try and get him on. But every one of them is a solid candidate. Every one of them has some great ideas. The only thing is that we have not heard from a lot of them for a while. Governor Jeff Collier has not gone on the campaign trail as far as I'm aware. He's been trying to delegate the governorship, and I get that, and he's trying to do the transition, trying to establish himself, and he's hoping that that will lead to a campaign based on the record that he's doing in office already. I don't know if it's worked yet or not, just because he hasn't had enough time. We'll see in the next couple of months. Jim Barnett, I really haven't heard a whole lot about in the media. I haven't heard. I'm sure he's campaigning. I know he is, but I haven't heard much of him. Ken Seltzer, same thing. I have not heard a whole lot. I've not heard him on the campaign trail. I've not heard ads or any type of message. I've not heard him on the show here. I've not heard him. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying I don't know anything about him. He hasn't come on the show. He hasn't actually expressed his ideas. So, I mean, is that something that you're looking for? Are we looking for something a little more moderate to change the tone in the state of Kansas after Governor Sam Brownback? Or are we going to go with a conservative who's actually campaigning as good? Look, there's different ways you can campaign, and this is something that I love. I already said before that if I wasn't in radio, that I would be involved in campaigns, being a campaign manager, trying to work in that in the election process because I love it and I enjoy it. And it's fascinating to watch Secretary of State Kobach, along with Wink Hartman, campaign not just as the Republican fix, but literally out there as the conservatives. And it's very dangerous to use that word conservative. If you're within the Republican Party, if you're a conservative, you'll absolutely love it. And it's the best thing that you'll ever hear is the fact that they embrace the word conservative. If you don't necessarily care for conservatives, then that's a very dangerous thing to do. And with how wide the Republican umbrella has broadened, so to speak, trying to include other individuals, with how moderate the Republican Party, many members of the Republican Party has been over the last couple of years in the legislature, and many individuals in the state voting for a little bit more moderate candidates. You can look at the first big congressional district in the western part of the state with Tim Huell's camp and with their current representative. We can look at maybe some of the other elected officials nationally in the state of Kansas. We can look at some of our state legislators who are a little bit more moderate in vote, predominantly with many Democrats when it comes to the state legislature. There are many moderate areas in the state of Kansas. So to run not just as the Republican fix, but as a bold, staunch conservative is a very interesting, very fascinating, and very dangerous campaign. Now, could it pay off? Absolutely, it could pay off. And I love it. Personally, I mean, I'm not saying that I would support that just because I'm not endorsing anybody during the primary, but I will say that it's a very interesting race, and I give them kudos for saying I'm a staunch conservative. You're not going to bow down away from the conservatism, and that's what I'm going to run on. And if you don't like that, then I'm sorry, but this is what I'm going to do because I have these beliefs. I'm not going to bow down from that. I respect that personally. And I want to hear that from candidates, not just necessarily from conservatives, but I want to hear that from all candidates because I would respect them more in saying, this is a platform that I believe in. This is a representative government. This is my value. And if you support those values, then I'm the candidate for you. And when you have a campaign like that, then you're going to get more respect. When you're in a political debate, if you run on a campaign that's based on a set value and say you will not waver from those values, and I have a record defending those values, and that's what I'm going to do, then I will respect that. No matter what that is, even if I don't agree with it, I'll respect it. Bernie Sanders, I do not care for at all. I do not believe in what he stands for in any way, shape, or form, but I respect him because I know that he will not bow down and he will not waver from his values. Rand Paul, I do not necessarily believe in everything that Rand Paul believes in because he's a little too libertarian for me at times, but I respect him because he will not be bullied, pushed around, or waver from what he stands for. That's what we need in politicians, and it's very hard to find those. Kris Kobach and Wink Hartman, they're not afraid to do that at all today.
Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
In the fight against resistant weeds, you need to be prepared to fight back with the best possible herbicide rotation available. Kick off your soybean spray program with Syngenta's pre-emergence residual herbicides, Boundary or Broad Axe XC. Follow that with the hard-hitting post-emergence knockdown and residual herbicide FlexStar GT 3.5, and you'll be giving your soybean fields the protection they need to win the fight against weeds. To learn more, visit your local Syngenta retailer. Always read and follow label instructions when using Syngenta products.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Good Thursday morning to you. Almost made it, my friends. The light is at the end of the tunnel. You can see it, you can taste it, you can feel it, you can make it happen. We love having you along with us here on a Thursday. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. The Facebook Live and the social media is blowing up when it comes to the support one candidate or another for the governor's race. Couple for Secretary of State Kris Kobach, Wink Hartman, loving the partnering up with them with the official announcement that happened yesterday, and a couple for Ken Seltzer as well. And look, Ken Seltzer, he did phenomenal in the debate. I got to give him credit. He did a great job. He's got some great ideas. According to his website, he wants to bring the calm demeanor to the governor's office and a little bit different style. The big thing we need to take away from all of this as of right now, and I know that it's still relatively early, we have the primary in the fall, but the fact that right now, according to the poll that Secretary of State Kobach gave, where he shows that he is ahead 31%, Jeff Collier at 18, Jim Barnett at 10, Ken Seltzer at 4, is the big thing we need to take away from this is the undecided is still at 36%. That undecided is the swing of who's going to really get the nomination in the fall. The question is, which candidate's going to be able to appease them? Which candidate's going to be able to appeal to them? So any of these candidates are still in the running. Kris Kobach right now obviously is in the lead for who's actually dedicated and supportive right now, but the undecideds right now are still the swing when it comes to the Republican primary. So who's going to be able to sway them in this race? All of them are still in the running right now. Jeff Collier, Jim Barnett, and Ken Seltzer. Even Ken Seltzer right now with this poll showing 4% still has a chance if he's able to pull the majority of that support of the undecideds. They're all in the race. They're all in the running, and they see that. I do have a message. Andy, who would you support in the primaries and endorse? I'm not going to endorse anybody in the primary. My goal is to be able to get a Republican in the office by the end of the day in November. I do not support, I have my ideas and I like it, but I'm more the objective observer when it comes to the primary races for Republicans. It's your choice to decide who you want to support when it comes to the primaries. My duty as a radio host is to be able to give you the information for you to make that decision. Once we get to the primary, then it's our goal to be able to get the Republican, whoever that may be, into the race. But I'm not going to endorse anybody in the primary. I have my opinions. I like a little bit of everything from each one of the candidates, and it's your job. It's my job to relay that information to you and everything they're doing on the campaign trail, everything that they believe in, everything that they want to do, and then it's up to you to decide whether you want to actually support those candidates or not. Our goal at the end of the day is to get a Republican in office in November. That's what my goal is. So no, I will not be endorsing anybody in the primary. I like what some things people are doing and what some people aren't doing, and I'll say that. And I'll be objective and all that stuff. So, but Kris Kobach and Wink Hartman, personally, I think that it's a very smart move for them to be able to partner up and move forward together. And largely because of the fact that they are very staunch in idea. They're not afraid to waver from saying, I'm a conservative, I'm going to stand for conservative values. I respect that. That doesn't mean that Jeff Collier would come out and do the same thing and say, hey, I'm a solid conservative as well, and I'm going to stand on conservatism, and I want your support as a conservative. So I respect that. Again, I respect when we are bold, when we stand up and when we say that we want to believe in something, and nobody's going to back down from that. Personally, I'm not a fan of, I want to be moderate and play the both sides a little bit and be happy and be a little mushy in the center and try and work with both ends and be happy, hunky-dory, and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. I'm not a fan of that because that doesn't tell me anything. That may sound all great in a 10-second blurb or on a tweet, but it doesn't, to me, personally, that doesn't do anything for me. What do you stand for? Well, I stand for trying to make everybody work together. What does that mean? I stand for the moderacy, trying to make everything. What? What? So you stand for moderate tax increases instead of high tax increases or low tax increases? You stand for moderate tax increases. Okay. We stand for moderate spending. I mean, I don't know what that means. It doesn't tell me anything. When you say, I'm a conservative, I'm going to not raise your taxes a penny, I'm going to fight to not raise your taxes a single cent, we're going to clean up and we're going to do, okay, I see that, I know exactly what you stand for, and I'm going to respect it. If you run on a ticket that says, hey, you know what, I'm going to raise your taxes, I'm going to spend, and I'm going to see this vision, and this is what I want to see, okay, I don't agree with you, but I respect it because I know exactly what your stance is. I'm not a fan. I've never been a fan of the mushy, I just want to kind of go with the breeze and see what the popular thing is, and I'm going to try and be the happy hunky-dory one to find the middle ground. To me, there's no definition in there of what you actually stand for and what you actually do. So that's where I stand on it. Doesn't mean I don't agree or disagree with any of the other candidates in any way, shape, or form. But I respect when you take a firm stance on issues, and that's what many of them have done. Jeff Collier has been really strong in many cases as saying this is what I stand for and this is what I'm going to do. And he's doing that in office right now, so I respect that. Jim Barnett, he has given his opinions on many of it. Some of it maybe I don't necessarily agree with on his stances, but he's taken a pretty bold stance on many cases. Ken Seltzer, the same thing. He's taken some bold stances. If you listen to him in the Republican debate, he made some great points. And I laughed at it at the time, but I see where he's coming from when everything is making Kansas grow again, making grow economically, making grow population-wise, making grow agriculturally, we're making Kansas grow again. We're making Kansas great again. I saw his campaign there, and it was a great tag. It was a great hashtag. All of them are still in the race, my friends. We got a 36% undecided right now. Which one's going to be able to take that cake? Which one's going to be able to move forward? We have some time to decide, but it's up to you, the voter, to make that decision and for us to decide soon. I still have that voter guide that I made for all of the candidates. We'll update it. We'll repost it on social media so that way you can keep track of all their stances of where they do stand on issues. That way you can make that proper decision. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll shift gears a little bit. We'll play our interview yesterday from Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District here in South Central Kansas. Your thoughts and calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason.
Here's your latest forecast on the Big Talker KQAM for this morning. Mostly sunny skies, a high near 72, winds up to 30 miles an hour.
Giving the libs one dose of sanity at a time.
I'm not being aggressive, I'm being dominant.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, yeah, welcome back into the Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a Thursday. It is the pre-Friday celebration. Let's enjoy it as we need to. Appreciate you hanging out with us. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. It's going to be an open conversation throughout the morning for you. Your thoughts on the governor's race. At this point, who do you support? All you got to do is leave a comment there on the Facebook Live feed. Had a few of them commenting. Had a few private messages. Some supporting Kris Kobach, Wink Hartman. Some supporting Ken Seltzer. Some supporting Governor Jeff Collier. It's going to be a fun one. This is going to be one of the more entertaining races that we've seen in a really long time. So get set for that one. But again, 36% undecided for the Republicans right now in the latest poll. Who's going to be able to swoop that up? And the race is still open for anybody at this time. All right, I want to shift gears for a minute here, and let's go ahead and play this from the federal level as we talk about ways that we can start getting the government back under control. A little difficult to do so. Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District proposed a bill last week or a couple weeks ago on swatting, the issue where individuals make a prank phone call trying to say that there's someone being held hostage. Police show up, and then you know about the incident here in the Wichita area where an individual died because of that situation. Plus, we have another omnibus bill. We extended the budget spending caps just a few weeks ago or a month or so ago during that last shutdown. Now, where's that money going to go? That discussion is going to be happening very soon, along with the beginnings of the discussion for the appropriations bill. So all that and more. Congressman Ron Estes sat down with us yesterday morning right here on The Voice of Reason, and this is what he had to say. From the 4th Congressional District. Congressman, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Andy?
Hey, we're living the dream. Now you're back in Washington, D.C., and things have been moving kind of quietly and slowly compared to what it was towards the end of the year and at the beginning of the year with after the big tax break and everything that happened with the shutdown. But now there is the talks about appropriations, the omnibus bill. I want to get to that in a second, but you presented some legislation about a week or so ago when it came to swatting after the incident that happened here in Wichita. How's that been accepted in Washington, D.C.?
Well, it's been well received, and we've worked a lot with the Judiciary Committee here because we want to make sure that this gets addressed. I mean, it's a horrible situation that an individual or multiple individuals in the case have happened across the country, trying to basically bully and intimidate people and send them out and do these so-called swatting calls and turning someone into the emergency crew. And, of course, we had such a tragedy there in Wichita. And, part of it's, you can look at it from a state and local law enforcement standpoint, but part of it also, what's important from the federal standpoint is this call that happened in Wichita originated from California, went throughout, a long-distance process. And so we need to make sure that horrible crimes like that aren't committed and that we can make sure that there's appropriate penalties for folks that do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me why you'd think that it would be a joke to make a phone call saying that someone's under a situation like that and do it as a prank call. I don't know if it's just wanting to cause harm or if they think it's funny. I mean, it almost falls in the line with Tide Pod eating challenges, which is just dumb. But you're right. We need to find a way to punish these individuals so they understand the severity of that. Under your bill, what kind of severity punishments would we be looking at for this? Would they be able to be charged as the same type of punishment, like, for example, with this individual in Wichita, if they ended up having a murder or a shooting or a death somewhere like that, would they be able to be charged for something, for that crime?
Yes. I mean, what we really wanted to do is make sure that if there was serious injury or death resulting from the call, that the appropriate penalty was even higher than just the nuisance call that ends up being just a nuisance. But the focus isn't on really trying to punish somebody. It's trying to make sure that it doesn't happen because
Sure.
You think through the dynamics of when that situation happens, and law enforcement gets called. They're told something's happening. They're told somebody has guns or somebody has a bomb. Somebody's making threats, and they show up and. As a law enforcement, they have to be prepared for anything, and they don't know what's going to happen. And if you're the victim on the other end of the swatting call, and you're not knowing what to expect, and so it's just a terrible situation that happens. And And it's just something that we should have, individuals in America should have more respect for each other and not do this, not go through and think you're doing a cute prank, but you're actually, threatening people, and that needs to not happen.
Sure. I agree. I think it falls into the societal issue that we're having with the lack of respect for other individuals and the lack of respect for life in general, which is why, we're seeing the school shootings that we're seeing. We're seeing the incident like happened yesterday. We're seeing the bombing that happened in Texas. There's cases happening all around the country right now, and it's really because we no longer respect life. And this is one of those to where we think it's funny to say that someone's being held hostage with a bad situation that could end very badly as well. So thank you for being able to support that bill. Hopefully you don't get anybody trying to block it or obstruct it, because I don't understand why anybody would have that kind of motive.
Yeah, one of the things we wanted to do, there were a couple of other bills that were talked about and proposed that also addressed this, but most of them had other things tied to it. And in working with the Judiciary Committee, one of the things that we talked about was we wanted to make sure we had a clean bill that could focus on this, because it's not always cut and dried either. You may have a situation where maybe it's a domestic disagreement, and a boyfriend, girlfriend, one of them calls and reports that their car was stolen, and you don't want to necessarily overly inflame the situation if nothing happens out of it, but you want to make sure that it's appropriate measures for what happened.
Sure. No, absolutely. Well, very good. Hopefully we can see something happen with that, and I appreciate that very much. Let's shift gears to last time we talked about the potential government shutdowns and the omnibus bill and the continuing resolutions and some of these things financially at the federal government, where we're really trying to lock down some of the spending. And it's a very difficult process, and it's a very frustrating process. I know you guys are getting ready for the appropriations discussions in a few months, but right now you have an omnibus bill coming up. Now that we've raised the debt caps and spending caps that we can actually have on where this money's going, how is that debate and discussion looking like right now?
Yeah, right now where we stand is when we did the last continuing resolutions for appropriating money for this year is we authorized it through Friday the 23rd. So technically the government will run out of money again on Friday and run the risk of another Schumer shutdown if that happens. So we're working to ideally fund the government for the rest of this fiscal year through September 30th and get away from this 30-day short-term continuing resolutions that really are harmful. They don't allow us to plan. They don't allow us to. The military's having to spend more money on their purchases because they can't plan ahead and issue orders for multiple versions of planes or spare parts, and so we're really hurting ourselves doing this. So we want to get the longer term omnibus bill. The problem we're running into is that people are viewing this as, okay, it's an election year. It may be the last chance to get some pet project in. So they're trying to shove a lot of stuff into it. And I know our leadership has been working, trying to negotiate and get this moving forward. And we're wanting to make sure we stand up for good policies without blowing the spending. One of the things the Democrats said in negotiations early on was, well, okay, we'll just blow through those budget caps that we just set a month ago, and we'll just spend more money, and that way we can buy all this stuff. And
wow,
that's just a wrong way to think.
It is. It's the wrong way all around. And you're right, with the pet projects, they want to cram as much of that in there. Is there any way, I know it's more difficult with the omnibus bills as opposed to an appropriations item by item sort of thing, but is there any way that we can try and limit some of that from actually getting in there and that we're not just increasing more and more spending?
Hey, that's the big push right now, is just making sure that we can get the things we wanted last with the change in the budget caps, particularly the military funding, making sure that as part of that domestic funding, we've set it so that $10 billion of that non-defense spending is already set aside for infrastructure projects. So we know we want to do some projects. We don't know what they are, but we're locking that money up so that we don't spend it somewhere else and then have to come back looking for more money. So that's going to be a helpful start on projects. But it's a continuous push, and what we want to do is stand firm and make sure that there's not as much crap as what typically gets pushed into it. And I'm looking forward to to the bill that comes out. We haven't seen the text yet, and we need to make sure we keep it as reasonable as possible, knowing that there's still going to be some bad things that slip into it.
Sure. No, absolutely. And this one, I mean, again, it's only the temporary thing. I know it was a very difficult vote for you the last time when we extended with the continuing resolution and when it actually increased some of the spending, and it was a tough decision to make on that one. The hope is that with all of these temporary things, the shenanigans that go along with them, that when we start looking at the appropriations bills this fall, that we can see some serious reform on spending. And are we optimistic that still could potentially happen?
Yeah, I think there's some good opportunities there. I mean, we're looking at, particularly now that we've got the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in place, and President Trump and both the House and the Senate are passing some bills to reform some of the regulatory burdens. We're seeing the economy grow. So one of the things that we're looking on is how do we get more people back in the workforce to help take care of the jobs that we need filled now that we're seeing more economic growth. And part of what that does then is it takes people, it reduces the cost of the safety nets and some of the social programs, entitlements and the quasi-entitlements, because people get into higher paying jobs, more ability to actually provide for their own family, and that's where the real cost drivers are for our government is the entitlements and the quasi-entitlements. And I look at them in two different categories when I say entitlements and quasi-entitlements. Entitlements are pure programs that are just giving you money, whether it's food stamps, whether it's temporary assistance for needy families, or other programs just given to the quasi-entitlements, Social Security and Medicare. Those are ones that we've all paid into. Unfortunately, we haven't paid enough into them based on the amount of money that we're pulling out. And so that's really where our spending is being driven on the federal budget.
Sure.
The defense and the non-defense discretionary items are less than 25% of the budget.
There it is, Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District. Let's go ahead and take a break, wrap up hour number 1. Lots more to get to today on The Voice of Reason. Don't go anywhere.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Number 1, great to have you along today on a Thursday. It is The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier. Welcome aboard. Good morning to you. Lots to get to today. And the ongoing phone social media poll is, who do you support as of right now when it comes to the governor's race for the Republicans or even for the Democrats? I don't really care. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. There's going to be a hotly contested race on the left side of the aisle, as well as Jim Barnett, Laura Kelly are really taking a run at that one. Carl Brewer, the former Wichita mayor, running for that one as well. Don't get a whole lot of media publicity on there either. Look, here's what it comes down to, and I've said this many times before, as someone who loves to observe how elections are done, how campaigns are run and organized, and how you actually get your name out there to get the votes. There are two things in politics that you need, and that is money and a good PR team. Those are the two things that you really need. You need to stay in the media limelight. Why do you think Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016? Why do you think he won it? He was in the media every single day. He didn't have necessarily any ideas that were, he had some ideas that people liked, but when it came down to it, he was able to get enough attention from individuals by staying in the media. Whether it was something that you agreed with him saying or something that you disagreed with him saying, he didn't care as long as he stayed in the media. How many times did we talk about the fact that he got free press that would have cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign ads to stay on the station with everybody talking about him, that he did just by sending out a simple tweet and people saying, "Oh my gosh, did you see that?" And that's what he did. And that's how he was able to stay in the limelight. That's what you need to do in a campaign. I'm not saying be confrontational that way or being a little odd that way, but you need to stay in the media. Kris Kobach has done a job by staying in the media by not only the trial issue and staying in the media that way, which, again, no publicity is bad publicity in politics. Even if it's with a negative countertone, then people that support you are going to say, hey, wait a second, there's a media spin to this. If you agree with the media outlet, then you're going to say, oh, he's a jerk and I'm not going to like him anyways. And it doesn't really matter. But staying in the media, people talking about him is a positive thing. And that's what you have to do. And it's been timed out from the debate to the time that Wink Hartman dropped out of the race and endorsed Kris Kobach, and then the news about the trial. And then once a couple of days goes with the trial kind of dying off with Kris Kobach, then he comes out and talks about his campaign embracing Wink Hartman. It's a smart campaign tactic. That's all it is. It's smart because now we're going to be talking about it for a couple of days, and then it'll fade down, and then something else will happen. That's what you have to do in politics. It's a smart campaign tactic. Governor Jeff Collier is doing the same thing. I mean, being governor, he's got different executive orders that he's working on, different legislation with the legislature. He's working on different speeches around the state, working with different groups and organizations, and he'll come out in the media and say, hey, I'm working on this. It'll fade down a little bit, then you come back, hey, I'm working on this. Hell, it goes down a little bit, then, hey, I'm working on this, or I'm signing this. That way you can show not only your agenda and what you've been doing, but with your record, but then you do it in a timely manner so that way there's always something to talk about. Campaigning is exactly what you have to do. Jim Barnett and Ken Seltzer, they've kind of died off a little bit. Do you see any media stories about them other than on their own campaign social media and their websites? Has the media been picking up something that they've said, something that they've done? They've got to stay in the media, got to stay in the limelight, got to stay up front and center, because that's when people are paying attention to you. Then when you say something, whether people agree with it or disagree with it, then they can come back, and when you're campaigning, they'll raise their hand and say, hey, wait a second, I saw your comments on this. Can you elaborate? Or they'll come to your campaign rally and say, hey, you know what? I disagree with you on this statement. Can you please clarify? Or I love what you had to say about this. Can you reiterate what you had to say at that time so that way everybody else can hear? You got to stay in the media limelight all the time, nonstop. So I'll have some fun talking about that next hour. We will have Kris Kobach and possibly Wink Hartman together on the line with us at 7:30, coming up in about a half an hour from now. So that will be a lot of fun. When we come back, I do want to shift gears a little bit. I don't want to focus on this the entire show, but I do want to leave it open to you to leave a comment on social media or to give us a call on the show. Let us know your thoughts so far for the Republican primary and who you support at this time. 36% of the undecideds, kind of a fascinating number, because right now that's the largest number, and anybody is still in the race to be able to pick this up and run with it by the end of this fall when it comes to the primary vote. So it is open for you for that. But when we come back, I want to shift gears just for a bit. I don't know if you've seen this or not. Lawsuits are now the greatest thing in the world. It is now the American dream for the lawsuits. And as we talk about a couple car dealerships here in the Wichita area getting in trouble for selling cars with recalls on them for certain issues with the vehicle. Should we be looking at the dealership or should we be looking at the manufacturer? That discussion to come up here in just a minute. We'll get your thoughts on that. This is your show, as always. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason, baby. This is The Voice of Reason. Lots more coming up in hour number 2. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech. You're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 2, broadcasting live across the entire South Central Kansas area, hailing from the center of the nation. We really are the center of the nation right here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. Good morning. However you may be listening, watching, we love having you along. Starting off your morning better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink, because that's what we do here. Although I will say, hold on here, I got to get this morning. I needed a little pick-me-up. It was, for whatever reason, it was tough to get going today. I do have my delicious Voltage Mountain Dew, which I don't drink very often. The last month, I've been going for the lemon water, and that's been doing it because I'm trying to do on this whole health kick thing. But today, hey, once in a while you're allowed to splurge. Once in a while you're allowed to actually delve into something fun and actually have a little bit of soda or whatever. So that's my goal today. We're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to get a lot done. It's a big show. It's a heck and a half today as we have some fun and actually get some information out to you. At the bottom of the hour, Kris Kobach, Secretary of State, along with GOP candidate for the gubernatorial race, along with potentially Wink Hartman, his newly elected running mate, will be joining the show in just a little bit. We'll chat with them about that choice and their campaign for the next couple of weeks. Also, at 8 o'clock, I am really excited. We recorded an interview yesterday with them. It is Gustavo Torrez. He's the Director of Youth Advocacy for the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Yesterday, if you're aware, was Kick Butts Day, trying to make sure that the youth do not actually start smoking. So we'll talk about that campaign and what they've been doing in just a little bit. Open lines to you, though, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK right now, as I want to get your thoughts on your thoughts for the governor's race. Do you like the fact that Secretary of State Kris Kobach ended up choosing Wink Hartman? Do you like a different candidate? Do you like the campaign style that they've done? It is very bold, in my opinion, with them partnering up together and running with the conservative movement. Do you think that's too bold? Do you think it's going to work? Do you think that we'll be able to, or they will be able to, I guess we should say, the 36% undecided vote when it comes to right now in the latest poll and who they will support in the Republican governor's race? Will it be Kris Kobach and Wink Hartman? Will it be Ken Seltzer? Will it be Governor Collier? Will it be Jim Barnett? We have talked with every candidate on the show so far except for Ken Seltzer. We will get him on the show when we're able to. And then we'll get everybody else on. Governor Jeff Collier, now, he's been on the show. He hasn't necessarily talked about his campaign, but he has been on the show. We will get him on talking about his campaign soon as well, along with Jim Barnett, who has been on once or twice. He came on right before the debate, if you remember, and chatted about the fact that he didn't want to be in the debate because he didn't want to sign the rules, and therefore he wasn't allowed to. So we will get him back on the show as well. 36% means that it's still anybody's game right now. Who can pick up that support? Who will be able to win over the support of the Republicans in that primary? So if you want to talk about that, you're more than welcome to do so. I do want to shift gears for a minute here, though. I don't know if you saw this story. This is hat tip to KWCH. 2 Wichita car dealers will pay thousands of penalties under agreements with the district attorney's office. The penalties are in connection with safety and recall notices. The DA's office says it entered into an agreement with Eddie Hill, general manager for Elite Auto Sales. Under the agreement, he'll pay $5,000 in civil penalties and address repairs, including inoperable seat belts. The DA says under the agreement, he did not admit to the allegations against him. Now, the same goes with, by the way, Aztec Motors, along with its owner and salesperson, who also agreed to pay $10,000 in civil penalties to check all their vehicles for recalls and address compensation to some previous customers. Here's what I don't understand. And maybe you know a little bit more detail on this than just this little blurb from the news. The only story that I've seen that's been anywhere close to this, the fact is that there's been recalls on some vehicles. I just recently took my vehicle in for some tune-ups and oil change and so on and so forth. And before they let it go, they called me up and said, hey, by the way, there's a recall on it. We need to update some software on the computers, which I hate chips in cars, because it's really not operable. You can't fix it. It's more expensive just to repair it than it is to actually go out and get a new vehicle. But they said there's a software upgrade. There's a recall when it comes to some of the software on the computer chip in the car, and they're going to have to update it all. Okay, great. They did it. It's all fine. It's taken care of. I got my car back, and everything's running hunky-dory. When there's a recall, whose responsibility is it to recognize the recall, to let you know about the recall, and to repair the recall? Now, to repair it, it's the manufacturer. It didn't cost me a thing when they upgraded the software on the chip of my car, because it was done by the manufacturer. They got it taken care of, and it was fine. The recall means that there's a defect when it came off the line from the manufacturer, so they didn't necessarily take care of it. But whose responsibility is it to let you know about that? Is it you? Is it the dealership? Is it the manufacturer to do the big press release and let everybody know? Whose responsibility is that to track that? Now, the only story that I've seen that's anywhere close to something like this was about a year ago on ABC News. And if you remember, this was a big deal for a little bit as they talked about recalls, but it wasn't necessarily the recall itself, which was very odd to me. It wasn't necessarily the recall of where, okay, there's a recall on a vehicle, we need to get it taken care of. Anybody driving that vehicle needs to get it in ASAP. Kind of like a recall on food. If you bought the cabbages where there was some type of outbreak of some kind of virus, then oops, sorry, don't eat that stuff and then go buy something else. Not necessarily you're going to get compensated for buying that, but just don't eat it and just go buy a different one. But for the car dealerships, when it came to it, it wasn't necessarily a lawsuit or litigation against the actual recall, but it was about the advertising on the recall, which I find hysterical. Because we're more concerned about how to actually promote the car to sell it than we are actually fixing the recall in the first place. Because the issue was why dealers are selling unrepaired cars potentially fatal for safety recalls. Consumer advocates are outraged by the Federal Trade Commission's decision in several recent cases. This was as of February 2017 that allow car dealers to advertise used vehicles with open recalls as safe. Not the fact that they may not be safe and that we need to get them taken care of, but the fact that we're advertising them as saying that they've been inspected and that they're certified and that they're fine and they're safe and you can buy the vehicle. To advertise it that way. Now, if you don't advertise it that way and you don't say that it's certified or inspected or it's safe and you just say, here's the car, do you want to buy it? Then apparently they're allowed to have it go out the door and that you can buy it. And then you find out later there's a recall and there's a defect on the vehicle. I remember a few years ago when there was, a Toyota or a Hyundai or something, some kind of car where there was a recall because all of a sudden like brakes would completely fail on the vehicles and they wouldn't be able to stop. And there was a few accidents or there was something wrong with it where the defect just fell off. You're driving down the highway and it just fell off the car on the highway and you were done for. And it was kind of a big deal. Or the steering wheel would pop off. You remember that one? There's a few weird little quirks that happen, which I'm not going to fault the manufacturer for it. I mean, you're building it. It's on the assembly line. There's always going to be human issues. There's going to be faults. We're never going to make anything perfect. So there's always going to be something. I'm not faulting them in any way, shape, or form, no matter what vehicle or what make or model it is. But we're more concerned today of the fact that we're actually having lawsuits about the advertising of the vehicle and a car dealership saying, oh, yeah, come buy this car. And there may be a recall on it. And as long as they don't advertise it that it's certified, inspected, and safe that way, then they can sell it just without it. Now, I'm pretty sure, I don't know the ins and outs of the auto sales, but I know that maybe that's one of the things you have to advertise it as, that it's certified, it's inspected, it's safe, and everything's hunky-dory, and you have to go through that safety inspection with the potential buyer to let them know that it's going to be a safe car to drive. I don't know. Maybe you have to do that. Maybe it's federally regulated in that sense to where it's a law you have to tell them. If it's not, then all you got to do is take that away and then you're fine. But don't we have the wrong priorities? Don't we have our priorities in the wrong place when we're more concerned about the advertising and the marketing of the product as opposed to actually fixing the product in the first place? Now, I don't see it to be the necessary need of the dealer when they're trying to sell a vehicle to tell you or to even know or to track it with a T on whether the car or the vehicle has a recall on it or not. Maybe when you're going through the purchasing process, you process, okay, someone's interested in this style of car, this type of car, then we run it before you purchase it. And okay, you know what? You can buy it, but before you do, there's a recall on something. We'll get it fixed before you go out the door with it. And to me, that would be probably the most appropriate way. I'm not concerned about the advertising or the marketing of the vehicle. I don't really care. When I go and I want to go purchase a vehicle, I'm going to look at the style that I want. I'm going to look at whatever interests me, whether it's the gas mileage, whether it's the efficiency, whether it's the hauling, or whether it's the power, whether it's whatever. That's what you go to the vehicle or the dealership to look for. I don't care about the advertising. And then when I buy it, then, okay, you know what? There's a recall on it. We're going to get it all tuned up before we go out the door with it. We'll get you taken care of, and then you're on your way. Why do we have this issue? But now we're seeing another opportunity for legal cases, and I'm sure the lawyers are loving this, by the way. The legal teams are absolutely loving this because they can go after dealerships, they can go after manufacturers, they can go after whoever they want to because they see the opportunity to be able to create another lawsuit. We have now become a society where it's the American dream to sue somebody just because we feel the opportunity to do so. And we need to be very careful about that type of society because already the legal system has way too much power over us. with judicial activists and with political activists on the court, they're going to judge on something to see the opportunity to see more cases like that and to be able to have more power over you, because nowadays it's not just the general small laws to where we just use common sense to go about our business, but we have to have a defined law for every tiny little potential opportunity for someone to take advantage of the system. And it's sad. And it breaks my heart. So your thoughts on this? Do you find the dealerships liable when there's a recall? Is it your responsibility, or should the manufacturer be letting you know before you even purchase the car? And is the advertising of it even worth your time to be caring about when it comes to a lawsuit of saying, well, we certified it or we inspected it maybe before the recall actually came out, it's still labeled as such, and then a recall came out and we didn't actually change that, or we didn't take away that advertising part saying that it's been certified or inspected? Is that a big deal to you? Because to me, it's not. But it's all over the news now, to where now we're seeing 2 dealerships unfortunately having to pay major fines here in Wichita because of different civil penalties and repairs when it comes to recalls for cars that they ended up selling. And I think that's completely unnecessary. Now, do they need to go, if someone bought it and we find out there's a recall, bring it back and they'll get it taken care of and on their way we go and it's all fine and hunky-dory. But the fact that they're getting punished this way kind of breaks my heart, in the sense that now we're seeing the opportunity for legal cases across the board. Not necessarily the best way to go about the situation, not necessarily, like usual in politics, the best, the focus of priorities that we need to be having, as opposed to fixing the recall, as opposed to how they actually advertise and market the product. 316-721-8255, 19 minutes past the hour. Let's go ahead and take a phone call before we take a break. What do you say? Let's do that first. Caller number 1. Good morning. What's your name? Hello. Going once, going twice. Give me a call back. I'd love to hear from you. 316-721-8255, 20 minutes past the hour. Let's take a break. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
25 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. More social media posts on who you support as of right now when it comes to the governor's race. And did it change your mind at all with the choosing of Wink Hartman to be the running mate for Secretary of State Kris Kobach? Another message just got over the break, supporter of Governor Jeff Collier. So there's that. We're kind of evenly sparsed across the board right now when it comes to support for one candidate or another. Your thoughts and calls on this, 316-720-8255, 316-721-TALK. We'll have in about 10 minutes Secretary of State Kris Kobach on the show talking about his choice to pick Wink Hartman as his running mate. But first, let's go to the phone tier line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, happy Thursday.
Hey, good morning, Myron. How are you, sir?
Well, you know I'm so pretty, I got to be good.
Well, there you go. That's a good day right there.
Hey, a great rant on lawyers and our legal system. I wanted to jump to another subject that we probably discussed at other times, the recent school shooting, where the shooter, he didn't have a war rifle. He had a pistol.
He did not, you're right. He did not have a weapon of war, according to the definition of what some individuals have labeled as a weapon of war. Now, military members and soldiers and people in war use handguns, so it still could be considered a weapon of war, but that's not what they describe a weapon of war as, because they have chosen what definitions of certain weapons and certain objects will be, like an AR-15 meaning to be an assault rifle instead of what it actually means.
Well, and the step 2 was you had an armed security guard who did exactly what an armed officer is expected to do. It's like the military do. You run to the sound of gunfire.
Right.
Everybody was praising the police chief up in Heston, and they should. But he went up against a rifle-armed individual with a handgun. But he went to the sound of gunfire, and he took out the shooter.
Sure, exactly. That's what you do.
That's what I expect of the police department, of anybody whose job has accepted protecting me.
It really kind of shows the lack of understanding when it comes to certain individuals who say and who have used the argument that why should we arm teachers or have more security guards with handguns? Because if there's a shooter with an assault rifle or with a very big gun, then it's going to be unfavorable to them in that way because the speed of the bullet and because of the impact of the bullet and everything, and it's just going to be an unfair fight. So there's no reason to have more guns in the situation because it would be an unfair fight and they would not have which is completely untrue. What you're absolutely right. When you hear the gunfire, when you're in that position, that's your job and your duty. You run towards the sound of gunfire, you take out the assailant, and then you eliminate them. And guess what? Then, like this situation, it doesn't matter whether the kid would have had a handgun, an assault rifle, or a grenade launcher. He would have run to the fight. He would have run to the sound of it. He would have eliminated them. And then guess what? Because of the fact that there's another weapon involved in the situation, the odds are dramatically changed to where no one got killed. We only had 2 wounded individuals, and the only person that did get killed was the actual assailant. And that's how it's supposed to end.
Well, and for the anti-gun people, this is a perfect example. You stop a bad person with a gun with a good person with a gun.
Well, and that's what it is right there. Myron, I love it. I appreciate the call very much. And to kind of wrap that up with the legal system, as we talked about in the last segment, look, the lawyers are all over this. They love this kind of stuff. They absolutely love it because can you imagine if we do have more security guards in, if we do have teachers starting to carry firearms, if we do have more protection, what they're going to try and do to try and use that in the legal system. Look, the judicial activists, they have control over this entire situation. What's going to happen? We're going to have certain school districts that want to arm teachers. We have certain districts that want to arm more security guards. We have certain districts that don't want to do anything. And no matter what decision the local school district makes, eventually it's going to go to the courts, and the courts are going to make that decision, and they're going to be the ones deciding whether we're actually allowed to do this or not. It is the power of the courts that are actually abusing everybody because they feel that they get to have their greedy little hands in it, as opposed to just saying, what does the Constitution say? What are we allowed to do? And then just go off and do your own thing. You don't have the right or the business to be making business decisions for everybody else. You don't. I'm sorry. But the progressives, when they get upset, they turn to the courts because they're going to their big mom and saying, oh, please save us. The big meanie head over there made me feel bad. Bottom of the hour news. When we come back, we'll have Secretary of State Kris Kobach talking about his choice for Wink Hartman on the campaign trail. We'll get their thoughts on what's happening with the campaign, the choice, and what message that they're going to be campaigning on. That's all right here and more right here on The Voice of Reason. Stay tuned.
It's time for your daily dose of reason.
Are you insane?
I don't know. Just ignore him.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Making it happen today on a Thursday. It's the pre-Friday celebration. Get ready for it. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. Let's power through, baby. Carpe diem. Let's make it a good one. You're going to carpe diem so much you're going to have to clean it up with a mop, because that's just what we do right here on The Voice of Reason. Welcome into it. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. But let's get right into our next guest. What do you say? As you know, the big news as of yesterday was the official announcement from Secretary of State Kris Kobach on the announcement of his running mates being former candidate for the governor's race, local businessman, Mr. Wink Hartman. On the phone with us right now is Secretary of State Kris Kobach with us. Kris, how are you this morning?
Doing great, Andy. How you doing?
Oh, we're living the dream, my friend. Congratulations on the announcement. That's really big news. I think it's a fantastic pick, and I'm really excited to see what your campaign's going to look like here for the next few months.
Oh, me too. It's been a lot of fun preparing for this announcement. One of the most important decisions any governor makes is who the number 2 person in the administration is going to be, because that person may have to take the reins someday, and that person's going to be at the center of the decision making. And Wink Hartman's got all the right qualities to be a great lieutenant governor. And of course, I don't know how many of your listeners have heard, but I'm going to do something really innovative with him, and that is make him the COO of the state. He's going to look at every agency and see if he can find some ways to cut waste and improve the efficiency of government from a business leader's point of view. And as everybody knows from the Wichita area, He's been a very prominent business figure in the area, and in fact, we're eating breakfast at one of his businesses right now, the Jimmy's Egg on 7th.
With Jimmy's Egg, that's right. I mean, that's the best way to start off the day, and especially after a heck of a day yesterday. I mean, you guys went through, 5 or 6 different locations around the state yesterday just for the announcement.
Yeah, that's right, and we're continuing the tour today. We're heading west from Wichita, and we'll end the day out in Garden City.
Very good, very good. Talk about, as you mentioned, I mean, Wink Hartman going to be the COO, CEO, kind of looking at some of these different agencies, and that's really what you've been campaigning on, is talking about not only cleaning up and draining, quote-unquote, the swamp, but talking about cleaning up some of the agencies and working to downsize the agencies a little bit, and kind of with the partnership between you two, I mean, it's a real possibility that we could start seeing maybe we could spend less money in the government.
Yeah, Andy, I've always said all along, Kansas doesn't have a revenue problem. We've got a spending problem. And, I'm a lifelong conservative and someone who'd always read that, government can't be cut. It's impossible. And then when I became Secretary of State 8 years ago now, I said, hey, I control this agency. I'm going to see if I can shrink this thing down. And we took our budget from $7 million a year. Now it's only $4.6 million a year. And, that's a huge cut. And so my thinking is, well, if I could do that with my agency, I want to do that across the entirety of Kansas government. But, I need someone to help me do it, who can help me identify the cuts. We had to look hard, and we had to find the way to find efficiencies in my agency. But with Wink at my side, he'll take that business perspective and look for waste in every agency. So I'm very optimistic we can actually shrink government spending, which is something that hasn't happened very much in any state in America, but we're going to do it in Kansas.
Sure. During the campaign when Wink was running for governor, he had the bus with the hashtag #FedUp. Now that you guys are campaigning together, I did see the brand new bus, and if anybody hasn't seen it, I recommend that they do. And right on there, what I got to give you credit for, and I love and I respect very much, is the boldness of it, and just saying that it's not, the general terms what we usually hear in a campaign, but it's the solid, this is the conservative solution, and this is what we're going to campaign on, and this is what we're going to do when we get in office. And it's a very bold statement, so I give you guys credit for that.
Well, thanks. We have very specific ideas. I'm looking at the side of our bus right now, and it says stop sanctuary cities, cut taxes and wasteful spending. These are very specific problems. I've been on your show before talking about immigration issues, and there are still sanctuary counties in Kansas, and I've been trying for years to get legislation passed to starve those counties of state funds. But we'll get that passed when I'm in the governor's office, no question about it. But these are very specific solutions to very real problems that we have in Kansas. Mm-hmm. So, hopefully people will see the bus and say, hey, I actually like those ideas.
Sure, absolutely. When you made the announcement yesterday, one of the other pieces of news that you did come out with was the latest poll when it comes to the primary races, and you're up right now 31%. Jeff Collier coming in second with 18%, Jim Barnett at 10%, Ken Seltzer at 4%, and then undecided at 36%. Already some big news with you gaining some traction on that. How much of the polls do you think is going to be affected with Wink Hartman jumping on board officially now?
I think now that people know that Wink is on the team, the poll number should go up even higher, because he had a substantial following among people who were being polled prior to him dropping out of the governor's contest. So I think a lot of those Hartman supporters will be coming on board. And I've talked to some of the folks who were supporters of Wink, and his message, that's part of the reason why we mesh so well together. He was speaking about the same conservative message I am. And so I think some conservatives were looking at Kobach, looking at Hartman, weren't quite sure which one to go with. Now those people can all come home to the conservative ticket in this race. And it'll give voters a real choice. I mean, if they want status quo and they think don't rock the boat, don't change too much in Topeka, then they definitely should not vote for me. But if they want someone who's going to shake things up, going to take a serious knife to the spending in Topeka, then they should look at the Kobach-Hartman ticket, because we will be the conservative option.
Sure. Last couple questions before we let you go. I know you guys are really busy, but as you mentioned, I mean, today you're already going to be traveling out to Garden City and moving across the state over the next few months. I mean, along with the trial that you're involved in right now with the ACLU and those guys trying to block things, along with the campaign, it's going to be busy for you for the next couple of months, but where can people kind of expect you to be, and how can people get involved?
Well, they can get involved by going to our website, kriskobach.com, and once you sign up there, you'll start getting updates on where the campaign, where I'll be speaking, where Wink will be speaking. That's the easiest way to keep track of things. So I'd recommend people do that. If they want to catch us on the tour, we'll be, like I said, we'll be heading to Hutch in a little while here. Then we'll be moving on to Great Bend, then Dodge City, then Garden. We'll be going all over the state for the next 3 days. It's exciting. Everywhere I've been going, there's been a really good reception, and I think, contrary to the mainstream media's drivel that Kansans are no longer conservative, Kansans now like higher taxes, and you really hear that, especially in Topeka, that hey, everybody's sick of those tax cuts we had a few years back. That is not true. Kansans want government to shrink. Kansans want to keep more of their own hard-earned money, and you've got to take a strong stand, and I think it's resonating with people. They're saying, yeah, I like the fact you're going to try to shrink government. So I think it's going to continue to be a well-received message.
Well, has that been kind of the main focus of when you meet people, what they've been talking about? Has it been the tax issue? I mean, now we're talking about potentially doubling property tax rates in the state to be able to fund the educational thing after the research study that came out.
Yeah.
The sales tax for online sales. I mean, has that been the focus of people when they meet you on the campaign trail to say, this is what's really troubling me, can you fix this?
When people come up to me and they have met me or they're meeting me for the first time, usually it's either that issue or they're familiar with my work on trying to stop illegal immigration and they'll have some thought on that, or it's the issue of stopping voter fraud, which of course you and I have talked about too, and the trial against the ACLU has been in the news a lot. So, and on that issue, boy, I tell you, Kansans are so fully behind the law that we got passed to require proof of citizenship. And in fact, a lot of the evidence of aliens voting comes from right here in Sedgwick County. So many documented cases of aliens registering and voting and canceling out the votes of U.S. citizens. And I think that is outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe it when the mainstream media says, oh, nothing to see here, move along.
Well, that's very true. Secretary of State Kris Kobach, congratulations on the announcement. That's big news. I'm sure we'll get you on the show here real soon again, but good luck to you guys on the campaign trail for the next few days. And I understand that Wink Hartman's actually right next to you there as well. Can we chat with him?
Yeah, here's Wink.
Hey, fantastic. Wink Hartman being the official announcement with the lieutenant governorship position for Kris Kobach, as Wink Hartman on the line with us as well. Are you there, sir?
I'm here, Andy. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's great to talk to you again. Wink, congratulations on the official announcement.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very excited to join the team with Kris. I think it's with the pair of us, we'll be able to do a really good job for the people.
Talk about your vision, and I mean, I know that we saw some similarities, and people were talking, and the buzz started right after the first Republican debate of saying, hey, you guys partnered up really well. You were feeding off of each other back and forth a little bit. This has been an opportunity that kind of rose up after that, but what's been your thought process throughout this entire thing from the debate saying, hey, I really need to partner up with Kris?
Well, it became pretty obvious, Andy, that during the debate, Kris was giving his conservative answers, and I was trying to do the best I could for the conservative answer. And all of a sudden, it was so obvious that it was like I wrote his script or he wrote mine, and it was really kind of a back and forth type of thing. So we kind of, I guess the old eye contact and a smile and a handshake, and it went from there. We started to have a cup of coffee here and there, and doing our thing, and pretty soon it kind of decided that why would we Republicans that have the conservative message, why would we battle it out and end up maybe handing the governorship to somebody from another ticket?
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to join forces, and I just am ecstatic. We have a great team. We are going to be out amongst the people of Kansas, as you know, again today, tomorrow, and Saturday. So anyway, we're out there, and we're going to be shaking hands and finding out exactly what the people want.
Well, you're absolutely right. I heard from a lot of listeners who were supporters of either you or Kris saying, I'm really torn because those are the conservative options in their opinion, and we didn't know which way to go. So I think that may unite a lot of individuals on that. Kris had mentioned that not only are you going to be the running mate, which is extremely important as a lieutenant governor if you guys get in there, but on the other hand, he said, you're going to play such a vital role at looking at a lot of these different agencies, which is something that you campaigned on as well. Are you up for that?
Oh, well, that is my skill set. As they say, my DNA is business, creating real jobs, not government jobs. My DNA is working with balance sheets and balancing budgets, working with overregulated business, working with tax structures that don't fit into small business life. So I am very, very well prepared, and I've spent decades doing it. So I really want to spend the next 4 years with Kris, and I want to dig in there. And as he said, be the COO of Kansas and make a big difference.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun to see if you guys are able to get in there. It's going to be interesting to see the response of some of that. I know I've seen a lot of the Democrats already coming out against you guys and going after you for that and trying to criticize it. But for the conservative alternative, that's a lot of people are really excited about this. So congratulations for you guys. And as Kris said, you guys are going to have a fun next couple of days letting the entire state know about this move.
We sure we're going to be out there with the bus, and we'll be city to city. We're going to Hutch next, and then we're going to Great Bend and on around the western part of the state. So it's going to be exciting times, and you need to invite me in studio now. You owe me one.
That's right. Well, hey, you're welcome to come in anytime that you want to. So we'll definitely get both of you guys in studio very soon. So Wink Hartman, business owner, also candidate now for the running mate with Kris Kobach. Congratulations again on that run, and we'll talk to you guys again real soon here.
You bet. Thanks, Andy.
Hey, always a great time. Wink Hartman, Kris Kobach on that one. Got to take a break. 47 minutes past the hour. We'll get your thoughts and calls on that when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2 already. It goes by way too fast. Appreciate you hanging out with us today on a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration rolls right along. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Appreciate again Kris Kobach, Secretary of State, along with Wink Hartman. Both of them joining the show this morning with their announcement on their partnership for the ticket running for the governor's race 2018. Listener on Facebook, will Wink Hartman audit all the school districts to find ways for them to cut spending? I hope so. I know on the campaign trail, Wink Hartman and Kris Kobach had both mentioned both the fight against the judicial system and the Kansas Supreme Court, along with the school spending. We got to remember 53+% of the state budget already is educational funding just for K through 12. We got another 12 to 14% for higher education. We're looking at almost 63 to 65% of the entire state budget only going towards education in the state. And now we're having a research study, which, by the way, is completely bogus, has incorrect information all across the board, has no idea what the hell it's talking about, saying that we need another $2 billion. It's not going to happen. So if they are able to get in, regardless of who gets in, I hope are going to say, you know what, let's go ahead and do an audit. You know what, let's go ahead and actually look at the funding. Let's do a complete full-on third-party audit from an agency, not an individual giving their opinion on this with a study that we just spent $200,000 on with incorrect information, but actually do it as a legit private audit. And then we can say, you know what, you can fund things here. We need to come back down and focus on the local school boards. Let's cut some funds and actually make it a little bit more efficient. So I sure hope that if Wink Hartman, as Kris Kobach had mentioned, wanting to be the COO of the state, wanting to go in and audit all the agencies, that education spending would be one of those, because that is the bread and butter. As I mentioned, I mean, you can't, when you're talking about trying to slice the slices of the pie into smaller sections for more and more agencies, and right now 53% of that's only K through 12 education, you can't really cut anywhere else. You can't really do anything else other than try and cut from somebody else. I mean, we are already having issues, they say, with our transportation department. We're spending $1 billion when it comes to our highway projects. Now, it's just maintenance. It's not any actual additional projects, but it's maintenance. So if we want to actually do more projects, we're going to have to spend more money. I don't think we necessarily need to right now, because we are still number 2 in the entire country for best highways in the entire country. But if they want to start some more projects or repair some bridges, we're going to have to find more cash for that. Where do you get it? There's a difference, and I've mentioned this many times before, there's a difference between the private sector, to where there's the ever-growing size of the pie and you're not taking it from somebody else, which progressives and socialists don't understand, with taking somebody else's piece of the pie, as opposed to the government, where it should have a set size of the pie, and if you want more of it, then you got to find a way to take it from somebody else. And it still can grow, but it grows at a much smaller rate for them to actually do what they want to do. And that's what we have to focus on as a priority for the public sector. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name? Nope, I guess we lost him. Go ahead and give me a call back there. But that's something that we don't understand and we don't necessarily talk about a whole lot. The difference between the private sector and the economy and the public sector with their pool of money. Right now, the Democrats are giddy, the mainstream media is giddy about being able to find $2 billion for funding for education over the next few years, which means they're going to look at the property tax, as we've mentioned, the income tax, the sales tax, this tax, that tax, whatever they can do to be able to increase that, because they want to grow the size of the pie, because they see more spending opportunities. And instead of consolidating themselves to be able to appropriate the money, hashtag appropriations, they're actually wanting to just increase the size of the pie by taking it away from the private sector. And we can't do that. The private sector needs to grow, and then we just take a portion of that and give it to the government. And when it grows, then we can give them more money for their more projects. But they have to live within their means and appreciate what we give them, not demand what we give them and us appreciate whatever we have left over. It doesn't work that way. And that's the difference. And any of our Republican candidates can do that. Any of them can. But with their focus, it's an interesting, unique perspective on how they're actually focusing their campaign with Kris Kobach and Wink Hartman. Kris Kobach draining the swamp, wanting to fight the progressives, being the staunch conservative. Wink Hartman being the business leader and saying, you know what, as lieutenant governor, I don't have to worry about the drivel of signing executive orders or signing legislation. I don't have to worry about that. I get to focus on the agencies. I'm going to use the business aspect of the company owner and look at the agencies, and it's a solid ticket. I'm not endorsing it. I'm saying that they're very smart in the decisions that they've been making. But yet again, there's still 36% of the votes that are undecided right now for the latest poll. The undecided vote right now is still larger than the vote for Kris Kobach. And Kris Kobach is in the lead right now. And I'm sure that will change a little bit with Wink Hartman jumping on board, and that may even go up a little bit. I don't know. But there still is an open race right now that's open to anybody with 36% of the vote undecided. They're going to have to appeal to a lot more individuals, and they're hoping maybe Wink Hartman can do that. Ken Seltzer has an opportunity, even though he's at the bottom of the poll right now, to be able to win some of that. Jim Barnett kind of being the more moderate candidate, wanting to work on both sides of the aisle and having a little softer tone, trying to fight against the Republican Party to a degree by not signing on to many of the rules when it comes to different debates and forums. That may work in his benefit. I don't know if it has yet or not, but that may work for him. We'll see. But it's still an open race, 36% undecided. But right now, Kris Kobach in a very strong lead against any of the other candidates. Governor Jeff Collier is in second with 18%. And he's hoping that many of his actions with his record as governor may be able to help him on that end as well. It's going to be a very interesting race. We got a ways to go until the primary, but it's up to you to make that decision. I'm just here to give you that information and make your own decision for us to get a solid Republican candidate and be able to win when it comes to November. Lots more coming up. Hour number 3. We'll get your thoughts and calls when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech, you're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 3 of The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of South Central Kansas, right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning and welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today on a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration rolls right along as we carpe diem. We have more fun than what we're allowed to do on a single day. 8 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, lots to get to today. And as you know, thanks again, we chatted with Secretary of State Kris Kobach and newly running mate, Lieutenant Governor candidate Wink Hartman in the last half hour. We'd love to get your thoughts on that. Right now, the big news today is, of course, that announcement and them campaigning across the state. And your thoughts on the governor's race so far. Do you like that? Do you disagree? Do you support somebody else? Does this change your mind on your support for one candidate or another? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. 316-721-8255. The Facebook Live is blowing up as well. Lots of support and lots of video views on that one. You're more than welcome to check that out. Facebook.com/1480 KQAM. Leave a comment, ask a question. You can actually leave your comment there. Maybe you just let me know who you support right now for the Republican primary for the governor's race, and we'd love to be able to do that. For now, let's shift the gear just for a minute, as yesterday was National Kick Butts Day, which was kind of an interesting campaign. If you're aware of it, maybe not. But we talked with Gustavo Torrez. He's the director of the youth advocacy for the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, trying to stop the youth from smoking and getting addicted to tobacco. This is what they had to say when we sat down with them yesterday afternoon right here on The Voice of Reason. He's the director of youth advocacy for the Campaign of Tobacco-Free Kids. He's Mr. Gustavo Torrez on the line with us. Gustavo, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well.
Hey, very
Happy
good.
day after Kick Butt Day.
Happy after, man. I tell you what, it is a great movement. I love the fact that we can try and educate young individuals on the dangers of smoking. What kind of movements and what kind of programs have you guys been working on?
Yeah, well, yesterday Kick Butt Day was truly a successful day. We had over 1,000 events across the country where kids stood up to big tobacco and pledged to be tobacco-free. One of the big things we did for Kick Butt Day this year was challenge states and communities all across the country to do their part to create the first tobacco-free generation. It was a truly remarkable event.
Are we moving in that right direction? I know that, the tide has changed society-wise, where back in the day, the 50s and 60s, it was just kind of normal. Everybody smoked, and that was just what you did. You didn't think anything of it. Then we started realizing the dangers of, and I remember when I was in school that we had the DARE program, and many places still do. But are we starting to see a trend of the youth slowly but surely walking away and being less and less addicted to smoking at a young age?
Yeah, we've made amazing progress to cut youth smoking rates to a record low of 8%. That's a drop of over 70% since 2000, when actually 28% of high school students smoked. In Kansas, a little above 10% of high school students currently smoke. So it's a little bit above the national average. There's still a lot of work to be done. We know tobacco is addictive. It contains nicotine, which is harmful to the development of the adolescent brain. So it's, while we've made incredible progress, there's still a lot of work to do.
Sure. Well, and we need to be clear that tobacco-free means tobacco-free across the board, with smoking, with chewing. And I get it. I was raised on a farm, and everybody chewed. Everybody had that in their mouth while they were working on the farm, being Kansas and being a big agricultural area. Chewing is kind of a big thing, I'm assuming, along with the smoking. So when you guys fight this, you're fighting not only just the smoking, but everything that goes along with it, any type of tobacco, correct?
Yeah, correct, including e-cigarettes. E-cigarettes contain nicotine, and as we know, just like with chewing and cigarettes, nicotine is highly addictive. So, Kick Butt Day is a day of activism, but it really goes well beyond Kick Butt Day, and that's why, in Kansas, we have the proven strategies to help reduce youth tobacco use, but also help to protect folks in Kansas from the dangers of tobacco use. One of those steps is increasing the tobacco tax. So we're urging folks in Kansas to call your elected officials and let them know that you support increasing the tobacco tax. We know by increasing the tobacco tax, it will not only help to prevent more people from starting to use tobacco, it'll help to encourage others to quit. And if we actually utilize funding for education and cessation efforts, we could truly put the health of all Kansas folks within Kansas first.
Mm-hmm. We're talking with Gustavo Torrez, the director of youth advocacy when it comes to Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Talk about some of the tips that you guys use, or some of the tools or resources, the ways that you try and educate the youth on the dangers of smoking. And like I mentioned, I remember when I was a kid, the DARE program and the local officers would be in the school, and they'd have the ketchup bottle, and they'd put in the mothballs, and they'd use the cigarette, and they'd show how much tobacco gets on there, and they kind of use those examples to show that, hey, that's really getting in your lungs, and that could be a danger. Is it the scare tactic to kind of show them the realities of it? Is it promoting good health? What's kind of the trend now to really show the children that smoking isn't necessary, and you don't need to be going down that road?
Well, I think one thing we know is that peer-to-peer education, young people talking to their peers about the dangers of these products, really drawing the fact that the tobacco industry spends, $1 million an hour on marketing and advertising of these products, much of which is really geared towards them. So it's really standing up to big tobacco, but also arming yourself with knowledge. We know young people are drivers of knowledge and information, and also are the ones that are helping to truly create this first tobacco-free generation. So again, by increasing education definitely is key. And, there's some great programs that the State Department of Health does within Kansas. And we also encourage young people, if there's not a local club or chapter to address tobacco, the number one cause of preventable health or preventable death in the country. If there's not a club on your campus, or if there's not a group locally, form your own. The youth have a very, very powerful voice, and they're showing that. With their support, we, along with our lawmakers, will truly help to create this first tobacco-free generation.
Sure. What's the average age of a child? And it's great that we're starting to see the percentage of number of children dropping when it comes to actually getting addicted to tobacco. What's the average age that you usually see a child or a teenager or a young adult actually start getting onto tobacco?
Well, let's put it into perspective here. We have 95% of current smokers started before the age of 21. And this is where we come into an emerging strategy that's really helping, which is increasing the minimum sale age of tobacco to 21. If 95% of smokers started before the age of 21, if we're able to delay onset of that, if we're able to reduce having 18-year-olds in schools being able to purchase tobacco products for their peers, then this will really truly help to create that first tobacco-free generation.
Very good. Last couple questions. I know you're busy. You guys are doing some great things when it comes to trying to move away from this. But lately, I'm kind of curious, what's the trend when it comes to tobacco usage? One of the more popular types of tobacco, is it the cigarettes? Is it the e-cigarettes today? Is it the chewing? What's been kind of the trend lately of kids wanting to get on?
We've seen such a dramatic increase in e-cigarette use, and in particular, we've been seeing young people juuling, using these juul tobacco products. The U.S. Surgeon General found that e-cigarettes are a serious threat to health of kids and young adults. As I mentioned, e-cigarettes expose kids to nicotine, which is highly addictive. So it's really, really important that we have strong action to prevent young people from using e-cigarettes. The FDA took the first step in 2016 when they prohibited e-cigarette sales to kids and required new health warnings on e-cigarettes. But we really need to continue to push FDA to really look at this and make sure they're prohibiting flavored e-cigarettes. There's over 7,000 flavors of e-cigarettes being marketed today, like gummy bear, cotton candy, mango. And by also reducing nicotine levels to non-addictive levels, this is really promising strategies coming out of the FDA that we know can really help to create this first tobacco-free generation. So we encourage folks to call their federal elected officials to let them know that you support the FDA regulating these products and you don't want to weaken FDA's authority to continue to put the health of our young people first. And not big tobacco's profit.
Sure. Last question before we let you go, but the other trend that's been happening right now, and I was curious on your guys' stance on this as well with, the young generation and even smoking in general, even when it comes to like medical marijuana or recreational marijuana, we see a lot of states that are beginning to move towards legalization of that. And with that, we've seen a lot of young individuals move away from tobacco and go towards marijuana. Is that a safer alternative, or is that something that we should try and fight from as well?
Our focus is tobacco use, which is the number one cause of preventable death in the United States. But of course, we don't want kids using any product that's addictive or can harm their health. So, it's really important that we talk about this. If you have questions about marijuana, we really encourage folks to address some of the other groups that are really experts on this issue, but more so, first and foremost, we know tobacco is still the number one cause of preventable death in this country, and in order to reduce the over 4,400 people who die in Kansas every year to tobacco-related illnesses, we have to make sure that we're talking about it, and our elected officials are hearing us say that we want to put the health of all folks in Kansas first.
There it is. He's the Director of Youth Advocacy for the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, Gustavo Torrez. Gustavo, how can people get a hold of you guys if they want more information on this campaign?
Yes, anybody could visit kickbuttday.org. You can see the events taking place in your local area. Also, you can learn how to engage on social media using hashtag KickButtsDay. Let us know what you're doing today to help create the first tobacco-free generation.
I love it. Well, I appreciate you joining the show, my friend. I'm glad that it went well yesterday with Kick Butts Day on March 21st yesterday. We appreciate it very much. We'd love to get you guys back on the show again later.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.
All right, there it is. Gustavo Torrez. He was the director of the youth advocacy for the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Let's take a break. When we come back, there were some interesting comments that he made in that we'll discuss. Get your thoughts on this as well, as we're trying to create a tobacco-free young generation, but some stuff in there that I don't necessarily agree with on the tactics on how it's done. We'll talk about all that when we come back. Plus, it's open lines to you for the rest of the show at 316-721-8255. 19 minutes past the hour. It is a Thursday on The Voice of Reason. Don't go anywhere.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
.24 past the hour. Great to have you along today on The Voice of Reason. It's a Thursday, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We're making it happen today. Thanks again to Gustavo Torrez talking to us about Kick Butts Day. Now, he brought up some interesting comments, and I want to get your thoughts on this as we talk about tobacco-free kids. First off, being the conservative, being the capitalist, being the entrepreneur, and the free enterprise individual that I am, number one thing I will not do is I will not go after quote-unquote big tobacco. And I'm not a fan of that argument. Now, I understand that's what he used, and that's what many of the anti-smoking activists like to use, is the evil big tobacco. Remember, they're evil, they're terrible, they're a big corporation. And I am not a fan of that in any way, shape, or form. They are a business looking for a profit, and they will market to the public in order to purchase their product. That's all they do, and there's nothing wrong with them doing so. We need to remember that we need to look at personal responsibility when it comes to deciding what we're going to ingest into our body, whether it's alcohol, whether it's marijuana, whether it's cigarettes and tobacco. No matter what it actually is, we need to have that personal responsibility. Now, I like the fact that we're trying to keep kids away from it for as long as we can, so that way they can make the choice when they're older on what they're going to do with their health when they have the right to do so. So I like it. I mean, again, I saw the DARE programs when I was a kid, and they showed how much tobacco gets into your lungs, and we show them the health risks and the health factors. Raising taxes on it is not going to do any good. Obviously, it hasn't stopped anybody in the state of Kansas from smoking, has it? Look how expensive the tobacco sales tax is. That doesn't do anything. The only thing that we can do is educate and then let them make their own choices. Now, as young kids, obviously, we have a little bit more control over what they do with their bodies, but once they get older, we're not going to be able to stop somebody. We educate them to say, hey, yes, you have the right to smoke. Beware. These are what the potential consequences could be of that. And that's all we can do. That's all we can do. Not demonizing the big tobacco, not demonizing big corporations, not demonize it, whatever. That's not the point. That's not what we're here to do. It's here to say, here's the education of it. Now you know, make your own choices. It's an interesting concept. What do you say? I know it's not usually the most popular discussion, but it's interesting to get your thoughts on this. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Hey, good morning, Jim. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very good. I got a comment on the drug issue, and then I've got another comment I wanted to make, too.
Okay.
On the drug issue, one of the big problems which has not been highlighted any place, and it has to do with everything from the school shootings to drug addiction and opioid epidemics. In the schools, beginning 20, 30 years ago, the teachers decided that they would recommend to the school nurses to tell the parents of a child that child needs to be on Ritalin or Prozac or some drug because it makes it easier to manage the class.
Sure. Yeah, it makes them a little bit easier to focus, and then, you get to control them.
It's worse than that. When you give those drugs to a brain which has not developed yet, the brain doesn't fully develop.
Sure.
And the kids don't learn how to handle stress and moderate things. And in some people, if you look at the physician's desk reference, suicide and homicide are listed as side effects of drugs like Prozac and Ritalin.
Absolutely.
And they give those drugs to children. 20-some years ago, when my youngest son graduated from Northwest High School, my wife and I went to the graduation evening thing and kind of babysat at the campus. And I asked the principal, how many of the students in school are being prescribed or told to take drugs by the school. And it was, if I remember the number, it was like 25 or 40% of the class. Huge problem.
Wow.
Second comment, I can't wait until the March Madness is over and I can listen to Armed American Radio again. I have to stay until 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have, and now you've been able to listen to it the last few nights. Tonight, we will have the Kansas State basketball game, so you won't be able to get that
which I will
one.
not pay attention to at all.
Yeah, I mean, we are the affiliate for K-State now. I don't know if they'll be able to go on from that, so I know we're getting close to it, but you're right. Armed American Radio will be back tomorrow at 8 o'clock, and then, yeah, we will have that rerun at 3 in the morning. So, I got to ask you, because you said you listen to that in the morning. Do you sleep at all?
No,
you don't.
I'm 72 years old. I sleep like a baby. I wake every couple hours and go to the bathroom.
Man, well, I mean, I guess we got to do that. But Jim, I appreciate the call, my friend. It's I'm not looking forward to the time where I cannot sleep, and I like my sleep. I like my rest, and like right now, I mean, getting up at 4 a.m. to be able to be here for the show. I go to bed by 7:30 at night. I'm in bed. I'm laying down. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to zonk because I want my 8 hours of sleep. I like that. I've gone. And maybe that's what it is. I mean, I've gone in college. I mean, I went 24 hours at a time without sleeping. I'd take little naps here and there, and it was just kind of that thing. So I guess I might get back to that point at some point in my life. But don't worry. Kansas State basketball tonight, 7:30. Basketball tournament for the Sweet 16. That'll be here on KQAM. You will be able to hear Armed American Radio tomorrow at 8 p.m. Also at 3 o'clock this morning as well for the rerun for that. Bottom of the hour news coming up. We'll wrap up the show when we come back. Your thoughts and calls, the local news update with Rick Everett, along with anything else that you would like to chat about. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Are you a Hoosier-holic?
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Call in now at 721-8255. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back in. Wrapping up the show today, man. What a fun one it's been today. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us, as you always love to do right here on the Big Talker KQAM. Thank you for that very much. We appreciate that. 36 minutes past the hour. Here's a question I have for you as we wrap up, and it is open lines for the last half hour, 316-721-8255. The question I have for you is, as we talk about smoking, as we talk about different products, as we talk about relating it to health care and insurance, the question I have for you, it is personal choice and personal responsibility for you to decide what you're going to consume in your body, whether it's alcohol, whether it's marijuana, whether it's drugs, whether it's tobacco, no matter what it is. It's your choice. You have that option. You have that choice. Some of them are illegal for certain purposes or whatnot, and those are up for debate, but all of them have an effect on your body. Positive and negative, some. We don't like to say that it's personal responsibility anymore because we like to blame somebody else. For example, that interview, and I like the movement that they're doing, trying to stop kids from smoking. I totally get that. I'm not criticizing them for that. I think it's fantastic. But we need to stop saying that it's big tobacco that's influencing all these young children to go out and smoke. It's the children's choice or the kid's choice to say, I want to go try a cigarette. We just need to educate them on the positives and negatives of smoking. But we want to play the victim of saying, oh, I got cancer because I smoked. Okay, you already answered your own question. Why did you get cancer? Not because the big tobacco actually made you sick, but because you chose to smoke. And it really brings up the interesting question of when it comes to health insurance, who's to blame there? And as we talk about the idea of even socialized health care, and everybody subsidized and being able to take care of everybody else because you may not be able to afford it. You may not be able to cover yourself. You may have a lot of medical issues. Let's say that you've been a smoker for years and years and years and years and years, and you end up getting lung cancer or throat cancer that is directly related to the fact that you've been smoking for 20 years, 30 years. Should we subsidize your medical bills through a socialized healthcare system because you made that choice? And it's a really interesting thing to think about. Should we cover you for the decisions that you made? Now, if it's completely unrelated, I get it. It's not necessarily your fault. You hopefully have insurance, and then, the community rallies, they partner, they whatever. But it's when it comes to responsibility for yourself, Is it our duty to subsidize your issues when you made those bad decisions yourself? Because in society today, we've heard from the mainstream media and from the progressives that you can do whatever you want to without repercussions, without responsibility, and then you play the victim when it actually doesn't turn out well for you. Oh, you know what? You want to have a kid, or you don't want to have a kid, but you made the mistake by doing adult things that created a mistake like that, then go ahead and just wash it off and just forget all about it. Instead of saying, hey, you kind of have a responsibility here. No, I don't. It's my body, my choice. You made that choice when you actually made the action. When you made things happen. That was your choice right there. You made the choice. Now that choice is out of your hands because it's the consequence of the action. You smoke. That's your choice. I got nothing against smoking. I don't. When I have a few adult beverages, I like to have a smoke once in a while. I enjoy a cigar on occasion. I really love hookah, honestly. I enjoyed certain tobacco products. I don't do it a lot. I'm not addicted to it. I don't do it every day. Actually, I don't remember the last time I did smoke a cigarette or a cigar or even hookah. It's been a long time. I haven't done it. But I enjoy it on occasion. Now, if I do that and then a week later, a month later, I get some kind of lung cancer because I smoked hookah for a while, and I say hookah is really bad, even though it's just kind of the water vapor and the flavor, but they say that's equivalent to smoking like 10 packs of cigarettes. If I get a lung cancer because of that, then that's my own damn fault because I did it to myself. End of story. I hope I have enough insurance to cover it. And that's where we're at. And that's kind of the personal responsibility that we need to get back to. Socialized health care only muddies that water a little bit more to where you can do whatever you want with your body, whatever you can ingest, whatever you want to. You can do hard drugs. You can do stupid things. You can ingest Tide Pods, and then you can go to the doctor and say, yeah, you know what? I don't have health insurance, but we have socialized medicine. The taxpayers will cover me. Don't worry. So I can continue to do stupid things without actually having to suffer the consequences. It's not a harsh thing to say for that, is there? That's not a bad, harsh thing to say, is it? It's just personal responsibility. Let's get your thoughts on this. Lines are lighting up. 316-728-2555. Caller number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Nick.
Nick, what's going on, sir?
Oh, I'm loving it. Hey, let me give just a little bit of commentary before we drill down on the substance thing.
Okay.
We here in America, and specifically Kansas, have a crisis of the family. Its fruit is apparent in everything around us. We see it in the criminal justice system, the foster care system, our schools, and our homes. Now, when we talk about substances and providing a level playing field where our farmers will be the first to benefit,
sure,
we have to look first at the Controlled Substances Act, and we've talked about this before, how it exempts alcohol in all forms and tobacco in all forms. And not just the plants, but these engineered nicotine delivery devices that are free-based with ammonia and have sometimes 93 other harmful and potentially harmful constituents in them that are allowed by the FDA. Now, when we talk about, say, lobbyists, there's a whole bunch of lobbyists that are up in Topeka, from anywhere from the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States to Altria Client Services and their affiliates, whether it be R.J. Reynolds or Winston-Salem or whatever, that are trying to make the legislators do their business. And so, you know me, I'm the cannabis guy, and trying to have that be, the prohibition of that be repealed for conservative values and the principles that we stand for. And I enjoyed the conversation with the last person about how there are 1,531 cases of drug-induced homicidal ideation that have not been investigated by the federal government.
Sure.
And a lot of these are involved with mass shootings and school shootings when it comes to mind-altering psychotropic drugs. So
sure.
A guy that gets popped for cannabis when he's using it for food, fuel, fiber, or non-FDA evaluated therapeutic uses, he then goes and he's forced or coerced into taking these psychotropic drugs that we really don't know what it's doing to him. And I'm saying we have to stop this nonsense. It's ridiculous. And we do believe in freedom. We do believe that individual liberty. We do believe in limited government. And it's time that we put all the cards on the table and act like true conservatives in Kansas.
I agree with you, and Nick, I appreciate it very much. I mean, it's a great point to make, and I completely agree with you. I mean, we need to look at a lot of these different drugs, especially the ones that are mind-altering. They're giving the kids the Ritalin because they're very hyper. Guess what? Instead of giving them a drug so they can focus more in the classroom, you should probably make them be a little more active so they burn themselves out, and then they're not as active anymore. It's a big shocker, I know. It's a crazy concept. That's the way we've done it for how many years and decades and centuries until we ended up getting these drugs. And now let's just put everybody on mental drugs. And guess what? Now we're seeing a lot of mental illness in the country. We're seeing mass shootings that happen because they want to be professional school shooters. They're seeing people that want to take the gun and go do their own thing because they have mental problems. We need to start addressing this. We have suicide rates from teenagers that are dramatically high when it comes to either mind-altering drugs or when it comes to suicide from online bullying and social bullying, and they can't deal with it. And a lot of it has to fall. I mean, we're seeing depression rates increase. We're seeing a lot of individuals make really poor life choices. And a lot of that has to do with the pills and with the medication they're being put on. So I do appreciate that very much, Nick. And you're right. I mean, I like to have the discussion when it comes to some of the banned substances. Now, I don't know if the banned substance can actually fix a lot of that, but it's definitely consideration to have as another option and alternative. Now, whether it has any benefits for that or not, then I still think that's up for the debate. But I appreciate it very much. It's time for News with Rick. We haven't done that yet today.
Boom, the humanity!
Ladies and gentlemen,
what's happening, sir?
It has been a busy morning, as you well know.
A heck and a half.
Good job with Secretary of State Kobach and Wink Hartman, by the way.
Always fun to chat with them.
A very good interview. Authorities have charged a woman with helping to orchestrate the killing of her mother's boyfriend at a northeast Kansas lake, and then her mother on suspicion of helping cover up for the daughter. 18-year-old Ashlyn Hemmerling is charged in the death of 22-year-old Taylor Sawyer, whose body was found earlier this month at Perry Lake. Hemmerling's mother, 37-year-old Sarah Hemmerling, is jailed on an obstruction charge. Ashlyn Hemmerling's boyfriend, 22-year-old Jonathan Blevins, is also charged with first-degree murder. Authorities believe Blevins pulled the trigger, then Ashlyn Hemmerling helped orchestrate the homicide, and Sarah Hemmerling, the mother, helped her daughter disseminate a false story. A former Jackson County volunteer firefighter was arrested for arson. 27-year-old Jacob Grant is charged with 13 counts of arson. Jackson County authorities allege that Grant set numerous grass fires from February 28th to this Tuesday in southwestern Jackson County. According to Jackson County Sheriff Tim Morse, Grant responded to many of the fires with the Delia Fire Department. He's currently being held at the Jackson County Jail, and bond is pending. So, Andy, how much would you spend for a $1,000 bill?
How much would I spend for a $1,000 bill?
Yeah.
Well, if you're buying it, then it would be $1,000. If you're getting it on special on a sale, then I might take that up for an offer.
Well, in this case, the price tag is expected to be close to $1 million. And what gives with this? Well, the $1,000 bill isn't just any old bill, but a rare one that was printed in 1863.
Wow.
It's believed to be one of only two available to collectors. The $1,000 bill hasn't been printed in the U.S. since 1945. The bill and other items going up for bids today in Baltimore by Stack's Bowers Galleries.
Well, that's pretty cool. If I had $1 million, I would maybe try and get something like that, because the longer you go, the values of that's going to go up even more. So that's interesting. One would hope. So. Interesting. You know what? I'm going to have to try and get somebody on to talk about this, but you mentioned the arsonist. And we had arsonists in Colorado all the time. A lot of the fires up in the mountains were started by arsonists, either intentionally or unintentionally. I've always wondered what the psychological thought was to say, hey, I want to start a fire and burn a bunch of stuff down just for the sake of doing so.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know if it's driving far away and still being able to see the plume of smoke and saying, I did that.
Like the view of the movie where the big explosion, they're walking away from it. And yeah. Now, right. I mean, if you're throwing the cigarette butt out your window, then you're just a dummy and it was an accident. But you weren't intended to be an arsonist at that point. I mean, I guess you could still be classified as that.
No, but at that point, you're just a dumb
You're just
wad.
a dummy. You're just a dumb arsonist. So, but if you're doing it intentionally, I don't know the motive behind that. Unless,
I don't know.
I mean, now, I will tell you a fun story. My grandfather was born down in Alabama. I think I've told this story. Down in Alabama, doesn't have a birth certificate. The hillbilly bootleg and moonshiners down there. He had told the story about how his uncle, when he was a child, got mad at his dad and burnt his shack down. But then the next day, they started rebuilding it together, and it was all fine. But when the family feud was happening, they would burn each other's homes down.
Oh, my gosh.
Because back in the day, hey, I'll tell you what, I'm going to burn your house. Yeah. No, I swear, it's a true story. There you go.
Oh, my God.
Talk about hillbillies
The
there.
Hoosiers and McCoys.
Hey, don't you mess with us now, I tell you what. So that's Rick with the news.
And that's the news.
Yeah, there you go. Fun story right there. I've never understood the point of an arsonist. I get that you want to maybe do harm, but just especially in like Colorado where you just light up the entire national forest and it's just on fire and you do it intentionally. What's the point? Unless you're just trying to be a jerk and wanting to be an anarchist to society. I don't know. I don't get that one. Let's go to the phones, get your thoughts on all this. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, Andy, it's Pam.
Pam, what's happening today? How are you?
Well, I'm sorry I keep taking up other people's time, but you keep getting on these good subjects that just
well, that's my point. I
gotta the wall.
I gotta get under your skin a little bit for you to call in. What's on your mind today?
I guess. Oh, and hey, I wanted to tell you, the gentleman yesterday that called about the guns, you were fantastic with your answers. That was great. That was a great answer, and I filed that away for a future retort if I needed it.
I've never heard that argument before by trying to use the argument of, well, he's just doing what NRA members want to do by resolving their issues with guns. I've never heard that before because if anybody that's that owns guns or understands guns knows that you don't resolve issues with guns. All you do is defend yourself with a gun. You're not using it to go out and do something. All you do is defend yourself with it, unless you're going out and hunting. But you don't resolve anything with guns other than the fact that you try and eliminate the threat that's coming at you. That's the only reason you use it for.
He'd been at the Kool-Aid pot, I'll tell you.
It kind of caught me off guard because I'd never heard that argument before, so that was interesting.
It would have me, because I was sitting there listening going, what? Have you heard yourself talk?
Well, I love it, though, because it keeps me on my toes. So that one kind of came out of left field. So I appreciate that very much, and I wish that there was more of that. But yeah, I mean, it makes it makes you really defend and think about your positions. And, that one, hey, you know what? No, we don't use it to resolve our issues. We use it to defend ourselves. But when all else fails, look, we want to have the guns available. It's kind of like the military.
Right.
We want to have our military there ready to go for when we need it, but hopefully we pray to God that we never have to use it.
Exactly.
And that's the position that we use when it comes to our personal firearms. We have it on our side, and we show it off, and we show everybody that we have it there because hopefully, other than being prideful of having a really cool gun, hopefully we never have to use it, but it's there in case we do.
Exactly. But I wanted to tell you did well.
Well, thank you.
What I called about is I don't understand how the government and the public is approaching all these different substance abuse stuff. I mean, cigarettes, the worst thing in the entire universe you could possibly do.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol, great. But if you're addicted to it, it's a disease.
Then it's a disease. It's not
a
actually
disease you can buy at the liquor store.
Yeah,
never
exactly.
saw one of those.
Yeah, I'd like to go buy I'd like to go buy some some nice cancer, please. That'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it. They've destroyed this entire tobacco industry. For their freaking out, and they blame everything on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, these same people prescribing Ritalin and all this stuff to these kids are the same ones saying that, alcohol's great unless you overdo, and then you're another victim.
Exactly. Well, that's a really great point. You're a victim. You know what? And what fascinated me about the conversation was when I asked them the last question about the marijuana side of it and said, well, you guys are against smoking. What do you feel about the marijuana thing? And he kind of walked around that question a little bit and said, well, obviously we don't want anybody harming themselves by ingesting any kind of smoke, but we focus on tobacco. And if you want to have the discussion about marijuana, then we can look up some more info and do on that, but we don't really do that. So he kind of sidestepped that question a little bit because I'm assuming with the general norm today when it comes to many organizations and especially the tobacco haters, and blaming big tobacco is that the marijuana is more of the locally grown thing and it's more natural, so therefore it's okay to ingest that smoke, but the cigarette smoke is really bad for you. So you're a jerk if you smoke cigarettes, but it's okay if you smoke marijuana. When I'd see really the two, you're still ingesting smoke into your lungs, you're still harming yourself. And actually, the studies have shown not only the medical benefits that they've tried to say with marijuana, which I can see or disagree with, whatever, but it does do harm to your brain as well, and especially young kids that try it at a young age when they smoke marijuana does dramatically terrible harm to your brain, less so than tobacco does.
Right. Well, and I actually, years ago, I had a dentist tell me that he would much rather people smoke pot than cigarettes because it's so much easier to get off your teeth. And I had a doctor tell me the same thing, that it clears out of your lungs quicker than
it clears
all
out, but it also scars
that they
them
put
more.
in the tobacco. He was telling me.
Well, yeah, and the smoke may clear out, but it scars your lungs more devastatingly, from what I've heard.
Well, and I don't really know, but it's just their arguments. It's like that gun guy. These arguments are so asinine. And
it really makes you think. Yeah,
you don't apply them to everything,
mm-hmm.
and it just, everything is its own separate little deal. But tell me, what is the? Now I heard you say this hookah thing. Now, when I grew up in the '60s, you got to remember. Now, hookah to me means you put a big old plug of hash in a water pipe and smoke it. Now,
hookah,
so what is that?
Hookah, I guess, is, and it's funny because my parents actually thought the same thing as well, and it really is, it's kind of the bong thing as well, and it looks like kind of the bong that you would have used back in the 70s with the hash, but it's not, it's just tobacco. And actually, it originated from the Middle East, and the military really brought it back after us being involved in the Middle East for so long. But it's the big elaborate bong thing with the water bowl at the bottom, and you have the hot coals on the top, and it's flavored tobacco. And when you smoke it, you inhale it through the hose, and it burns the tobacco. It goes down into the water bowl, and it's the water vapor that you inhale, and all you taste is the really wonderful flavors, and it's really cool. But and I thought that it was actually healthier for you because you're not directly burning the tobacco and ingesting that. You're doing the water vapor. But apparently, to some studies, they say that smoking an hour of the hookah is equivalent to like 10 packs of cigarettes. So it may not be that good for you, but I enjoy it. Pam, I love it. We're way late on a break, but I enjoy it. I haven't done it in a long time, but I personally enjoy hookah. But yeah, it's a tradition from the Middle East, and we've kind of accepted some of that coming from our involvement over there. And it's kind of been a big thing. And I think there's even hookah bars around the Wichita area right now. It's kind of a fun thing to try. So I enjoy it. I know some people may shake their heads at me, but it's enjoyable to me once in a while. Got to take a break. We'll try and squeeze in one more phone call when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
I got to be honest, I never thought I'd be talking about hookah on the show. That was entertaining. Appreciate all the phone calls. Had a few more. Didn't quite get to you today. I apologize. The show goes by way too fast, and we have way too many great conversations here. So appreciate everybody tuning in, checking it out, calling into the show. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up your week on a Friday. Call back in. It's a free-for-all Friday tomorrow. Anything you want to talk about, so anything that you wanted to talk about today, we can do so again tomorrow. As always, we love it. Appreciate it very much. This is your show. It's all about you. It's not about me. It's about you. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason, baby. This is The Voice of Reason. Have a great Thursday.